Hey everyone, and welcome to another live episode of the Mary Trump Show. And as you can clearly see, I'm not Mary Trump. I'm Mujahid Ali. I'm subbing in for the great Mary, who was a little bit under the weather today. And so she has asked me, Brown Mary from Earth 3, to step in. And like Brown Mary, I do love Creedence Clearwater. But today, folks, we're not going to do it nice and easy. We're going to do it nice and rough, like Tina Turner. Because Donald Trump is having a rough week. Oh boy, he's having a rough month. Oh, his European trip is just nothing but scandals and gaffes and humiliations. And I'm here for one to pour it on. Oh, I want to pour it on. Ooh, I want him to suffer and be humiliated and be mocked and be ridiculed. Folks, I'm not the only one, because it seems he has lost Rupert Murdoch. Oh, you know that flaming leftist Rupert Murdoch, one of the supervillains of the 20th and 21st centuries? That Rupert Murdoch, the owner of Wall Street Journal and Fox, has not just sharpened the knives, folks, against Donald Trump. It seems like he's in a stabby motion right now. So he's losing Rupert Murdoch. Seems like he's losing Joe Rogan. He's completely underwater. His trade deals are going nowhere. Reporters are finally getting a spine and ask him, follow-up questions. But the Republican Party remains committed to cruelty. However, there is an opening for Democrats if they want to take it. Let's dive in. We don't need a National Lampoon version of Donald Trump's European vacation because, folks, it's a documentary. Oh boy, it's been bad. Donald Trump has spent the past few days in Europe, and he was chased out of every corner of Scotland. I love the Scots. Oh, God bless him, who came out with signs and humiliated him and mocked him. So today he met with our ally, or I should say our former ally, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, at his golf course in Scotland. And judging off the warm welcome he has thus received from the countrymen, Donald's meeting didn't really start off that well. Lexi, play this clip. That's awesome. I need that to be the permanent soundtrack for Donald each time we see him, right? Like, I always had the Curb Your Enthusiasm soundtrack every time Donald does something, but I need these like squeaking bagpipes each time he moves, he walks, he gaffes. I need those bagpipes in my life each time Donald does everything. That was exquisite. Scotland, I love you. Inshallah, one day I will visit you. While the two leaders were supposed to meet and talk about, important things like alliances and Gaza, the genocide that's happening, and the trade war that is disastrous, and trade negotiations, Donald, being Donald, couldn't shut the F up. He just cannot shut the F up. And of course, he cannot stop to think about anyone else, has to hijack the spotlight, make it about himself, and engage in endless Festivus. For the most of us, Festivus happens once a year. For Donald Trump, it's every effing day. Even though he's the most privileged man on earth, he can't just stop whining and complaining. And he wants so desperately for the Epstein scandal and his friendship with Epstein to go away. And why can't people just stop asking about Jeffrey Epstein? Oh, the pedophile that he partied with since the late 80s. Oh, the pedophile that he was videotaped with. Oh, the pedophile who said that he was Donald Trump's closest friend. But like I said, reporters are finally getting a spine. And they're asking not just questions, folks. They're asking follow-up questions. Here's a clip.
And by the way, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times. I never went to the island, but Larry Summers, I hear, went there. He was the head of Harvard. And many other people that are very big people, nobody ever talks about them. I never had the privilege of going to his island, and I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island.
Yeah, you heard that right. I didn't have the privilege of going to the island where girls were sent to be raped. Donald Trump said that. You know why he didn't go to the island? Because the island came to him. Why would he have to go to the island when he was partying with Epstein? We know this. We have the videos. We have the evidence. Since the late 80s, folks, Donald Trump and Epstein partied in the 80s and the 90s. Donald Trump himself said in 2002, remember, Jeffrey Epstein, he's a great guy, likes girls on the younger side. He knew. We all know he knew. And Donald Trump, folks, for those who have forgotten, is liable for sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll and for defaming her. This is a man who's had numerous double-digit credible allegations against him for sexual assault. This is a man who said, he wants to grab women by the pee, but when you're rich and famous, they'll let you do it. Never apologize for it, says it's locker room talk. If you just look at the obscene things that Donald Trump has said, even about his own daughter, I want to remind people in the first Trump administration, it was his chief of staff, John Kelly, who allegedly told Donald Trump, excuse me, sir, that's your daughter, when he was talking about her legs and her breasts. This is Ivanka, right? This is a man who literally, there's a timeline of him when he was partying with Epstein, just pointed at girls, 14-year-old girls, 12-year-old girls, and said, in 10 years, I'll be dating her. He's the one who talked about his baby daughter, Tiffany's body. She's got Marla's legs. Let's see if she has this. This is a sick man. This is a man who partied with Epstein, who knew that Epstein was partying with young girls, abusing young girls. And I want to remind people, the sweetheart deal that Jeffrey Epstein was given in 2008. And folks, Obama wasn't president. You know who was president during the time? George W. Bush. In Florida, the person who gave Jeffrey Epstein the sweetheart deal, where he was a convicted pedophile, but he never went to jail for 6 out of the 7 days. Guess what? He stayed out of jail, where he continued with his predatory behavior. And then he was allowed to self-report to this type of Club Med jail, right? The person who gave him that sweetheart deal, Alex Acosta. And Alex Acosta ended up being Donald Trump's labor secretary. I bring the receipts. Like I said, we're going to do it nice and rough. We're going to pile it on Donald, all right? I bring all the receipts today. But folks, still, that wasn't the worst gaffe. There were more. Lexi, play the one that's even worse than this one.
People keep writing stories about the time he flew him out of Mar-a-Lago. Can you settle that? What was it about? What caused the breach with him?
That's such old history. Very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth.
Oh, it wasn't, the international sex trafficking. Oh, it wasn't the grooming and abusing of girls. Oh, it wasn't, decades of pedophilia. That was fine. I mean, boys will be boys. It's because he poached talent from Mar-a-Lago. And folks, 2019 Politico reported that some of the unsealed documents showed that Ghislaine Maxwell, who, by the way, is no victim, was part and parcel of Epstein's predatory ring. Not only did she abuse the women, like the farmer sister, right, with Jeffrey Epstein, she went and got the women, recruited them, groomed them, and molested them. She is a supervillain, that Ghislaine Maxwell, right? So apparently Ghislaine Maxwell poached some of these young girls from Mar-a-Lago to then go to Jeffrey Epstein. Well, one of these young girls was Virginia Jeffrey, one of the most notable, well-known public victims of Jeffrey Epstein, who also identified Prince Andrew. And that Virginia Jeffrey, folks, I just want to remind folks, because we're talking about the scandal, we're talking about the links, and we're talking about Epstein and Trump, but it's very important for everyone to know that there are victims. There are real victims, women who are abused, women who are damaged, women who are tortured, women like the farmer sisters who came out 2 decades ago and nobody believed them. When Victoria Ward, investigative journalist, mentioned the farmer sisters account on the record in a 2003 Vanity Fair profile, that was supposed to be the huge expose on Jeffrey Epstein. Graydon Carter of Vanity Fair scrubbed the farmer sisters from the record and then became a puff piece. Allegedly, Graydon Carter was threatened by Jeffrey Epstein. Vicky Ward, who was pregnant with twins, said she was threatened by Epstein, right? And everyone knew this was happening, folks. 2008, he gets a sweetheart deal. He continues harassing all these folks. And Donald Trump, as we know, said, that Epstein, he's a great guy, likes the girls a bit young, though. And in Michael Wolff's audio conversations with Jeffrey Epstein, Epstein says, you all heard him, I was Donald Trump's closest friend. So did they have a falling out over, the predation on young girls. Oh, sexual abuse. Oh, pedophilia. Oh, no. He had an opportunity here, folks. The whole world is watching. And Donald Trump, because he's such a sociopath, he's so cruel, he's such a misogynist, couldn't even bring himself to be empathetic towards the young girls. Just lie and said, he's a pedophile, he was convicted, that's why I stopped hanging out with him. Couldn't say that. Instead said, he took some of my talent from Mar-a-Lago, and then, I should be praised. Why aren't you guys praising me for stopping associating with them, okay? And other people say the big rift came in 2004 because they had a dispute over real estate. Not people, real estate, all right? Now, so we got Ghislaine Maxwell. Newsmax is doing, I'm a masochist for you folks, so I follow the right wing so you don't have to. Newsmax tried a couple of days ago to call her a victim. I want to repeat, she is not a victim. She is a sex predator. Epstein could not do what he did without Ghislaine Maxwell, her contacts, the fact that she was a woman, she was polished, she used to meet these girls, groom them, and bring them in, right? She was like, she lured the bait. And not just lured the bait for the predator, the monster, the wolf, she actively also abused them. So that Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison where she belongs. And lo and behold, notice that Todd Blanche, the assistant attorney general, deputy attorney general, who also used to be Trump's personal attorney, has spent the past 2 days talking to Ghislaine Maxwell. I wonder what they've been talking about. That slideshow, show me that photo again one more time, Lexi. Yep. Ghislaine Maxwell's meetings with Justice Department shrouded in secrecy. So, folks, what do you think? What do you think the legal team is doing? If I'm Ghislaine's lawyer, I'm going to be transactional because I know this is a quid pro quo administration and Donald Trump, his back foot is against the wall. So let's see. Play that clip. Let's see what happens.
Convicted sex trafficker and Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell has filed an appeal with the Supreme Court in hopes of overturning her conviction. Earlier today, President Donald Trump was also asked about whether he would consider a pardon for Maxwell, and here's what he had to say.
Well, I'm allowed to give her a pardon, but nobody's approached me with it. Nobody's asked me about it. It's in the news about that aspect of it, but right now it would be inappropriate to talk about it.
Shocking that 2 days after meeting Todd Blanche in meetings that are shrouded in secrecy and given a type of immunity, that now Maxwell's attorneys are saying, hey, pardon from the Supreme Court that has rubber stamped pretty much all of Donald Trump's wishes through the shadow docket. The same Supreme Court, completely corrupt right-wing hacks in black robes who gave Donald Trump, let's be honest, it was Donald Trump, even though Biden was the president at the time. They weren't talking about Biden. They gave Donald Trump absolute immunity for actions done within the scope of his presidency. Folks, that team of Ghislaine Maxwell, now after 2 days of meeting Todd Blanche, is let's just appeal to the Supreme Court. In the immunity brief, Maxwell and her legal team argued that her conviction, and if this makes you vomit in your mouth and pissed off, it should, folks, should be tossed because the U.S. broke its own immunity deal when it went after her. Here's ABC News' Jay O'Brien with a breakdown of Maxwell's legal approach.
Yeah, so this is Ghislaine Maxwell and her attorneys going to the U.S. Supreme Court to essentially say that her conviction should be tossed out because she was covered, they argue, under a 2007 non-prosecution agreement that Jeffrey Epstein reached with the U.S. government and specifically the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida. The way that this agreement came together is that federal prosecutors, again, this is in 2005 to 6 to 2007, went to Jeffrey Epstein and said that if you pled guilty to state charges and you registered as a sex offender, the government wouldn't prosecute you for federal charges, and therefore they give him this non-prosecution agreement, which doesn't just name Jeffrey Epstein, but it also names alleged co-conspirators, both named and unnamed in this non-prosecution agreement. So what Ghislaine Maxwell says is, okay, that non-prosecution agreement that the government reached with Epstein in 2007 also applies to me. That's the argument she's giving to the United States Supreme Court.
Folks, it goes back to the sweetheart deal of 2008. Florida, who was the U.S. attorney? Alex Acosta, who later became Trump's labor secretary. Who was the attorney general of Florida at that time? Pam Bondi. Who is Donald Trump's attorney general right now? Pam Bondi. Alex Acosta, by the way, folks, is still alive. I would love to ask him, why did you give this convicted pedophile a sweetheart deal and released him back to the wild? And yes, some people in the comments, I'm reading Ghislaine Maxwell, weren't they committing crimes after 2008? They were, because they got a sweetheart deal. She was not in prison in 2008. And even Epstein only self-reported 1 day of the 7 days of the week. So these are questions that, I don't know, some people should ask. And of course, because it's quid pro quo, we've been seeing this, folks. I love incompetent villains. These people are so reckless and so incompetent that they telegraphed this a few days ago. If you were paying attention, Maxwell's lawyer, David Oscar Marcus, was tweeting back and forth with Todd Blanche. Yes, they were doing the quid quo pro on X, Elon Musk's Nazi site. Ghislaine's attorney, Marcus, tweeted about the appeals today with a clear intent to suck up to Donald because he's been paying attention. You know, if you're out there and offer him $1 billion plane, $450 billion plane, why not? Kiss up to him, stay at his properties, lavish him with praise, give him money, give him crypto money, right? I want to remind people that Donald Trump, with sheer just naked corruption that we don't talk about, if Biden did this, my God, openly had, anyone who's the highest bidder and buys my Bitcoin got what? Access to Donald Trump. You all remember that? And foreign countries and anonymously are like, that's the greatest way to suck up to Donald Trump, right? Can you imagine if you're a foreign country or intelligence of foreign country, spend a couple $1 million, buy some of Trump's shitty Bitcoin, and voila, you have the ear of Donald Trump. So Maxwell's team is not stupid. They realize, kiss up to Donald Trump, suck up to him, and we might just get a pardon. The slideshow that I believe Lexi showed, it says in part, President Trump built his legacy in part on the power of a deal. And surely he would agree that when the United States gives its word, it must stand by. We are appealing not only to the Supreme Court, but, this is key, to the president himself to recognize how profoundly unjust it is to scapegoat Ghislaine Maxwell for Epstein's crimes, especially when the government promised she would not be prosecuted. Maxwell's meetings with Todd Blanche, again, the deputy AG last week, and this appeal today, clearly, folks, are connected. They're just criming out in the open. This is like quid pro quo. Just be subtle. Lex Luthor, folks, does not share his supervillain plan out like in the open. These people are so reckless, so naked, so shameless. They're doing it out in the open. Donald Trump, because he cannot shut the F up. If I was advising Donald Trump, and please, I hope anyone who's in Donald Trump's orbit, don't listen to me. If I was advising Donald Trump, this is what I would say. Sir, President, are you trying to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted sex pedophile and partner of Jeffrey Epstein, who is completely complicit within this and is one of the key supervillains, and even the victim said that she was, if not as bad as Epstein, perhaps even worse? I would simply lie and say, of course not, no. What does he say? Twice now he's been asked, well, I haven't thought about it. That's a tell that he's thinking about it. And folks, I said this a couple of days ago, it doesn't take a genius. Before, they actually met, what I said and what my fear was, if I'm Todd Blanche, right, and I'm the Godfather's representative, like Tom Hayden, Robert Duvall's character, I would go meet with Ghislaine. I'd say the following: hey, quid pro quo. You come out and you say, yeah, Donald and Jeffrey were friends, but guess what? I never saw any abuse of women. But do you know who was on the plane and abused women? And this is where I would give MAGA the chum. The chum I would give is 3 liberal names. I would give Bill Clinton. I'd give Bill Gates, because, the conspiracy theories about the vaccines. And I'd give him one more. I'd give him 3. And if I'm Todd Blanche and Donald Trump, I'd say, hey, Ghislaine, you say publicly Donald had nothing to do with Jeffrey, and you give us 3 liberal names, and we'll pardon you. And we got the Supreme Court, and they'll rubber stamp it. And voila, folks, that seems to be the play. It's happening right now. The problem, however, folks, is Donald Trump is negative 35 on Epstein. He has the lowest negative poll ratings of his entire second administration. He's negative 11. The only president this close in his first term that has had a lower negative rating was Donald Trump, first administration, negative 16. He's now -5 on his pillar, immigration. He's double digits negative on the economy, on inflation, on tariffs, on his signature bill, the big, beautiful bill that adds $3 trillion to the deficit to give billionaires permanent tax cuts and just rips away Medicaid with $1 trillion worth of cuts. It's -25 with all voters, -45 with independent voters. He is drowning. The Epstein scandal ain't going away. And folks, as I said at the beginning, last week I said, once I saw the Wall Street Journal, that flaming leftist communist rag owned by Rupert Murdoch dropped one of 3 bombshell reports in the past week, right? They dropped the report about, Donald Trump apparently drawing the doodle. They dropped the report about, the names that were in the book. They dropped the report about Epstein being mentioned in the files, and Pam Bondi told them. Well, Donald Trump retaliated, and he wants to sue Rupert Murdoch, right? Well, Rupert Murdoch, folks, I've been telling everyone, he's sharpening the knives, but I want to edit that. He hasn't just sharpened the knives. That knife is now pointed at Donald Trump, and it's in a stabby motion, because Rupert Murdoch ain't dumb. Rupert Murdoch owns Wall Street Journal. He also owns Fox. He knows Donald Trump. He knows Donald Trump would threaten him. He knows Donald Trump would sue him. They're being sued right now. Wall Street Journal has stayed true to its reporting, has not flinched, stands by it. And furthermore, when Donald Trump earlier last week tried to deflect, right, with Beyonce and Obama and Tulsi Gabbard and all this ish, Fox published an article by Ned Price. And Ned Price said that this is all a distraction. Yep, the same day that Tulsi Gabbard came out, Fox, that flaming leftist rag owned by Rupert Murdoch, came out and said this is a distraction. Folks, that is clearly, to me, an indication that Rupert Murdoch is done. He's done with Donald Trump. He sees him as weak. He sees him as old. And furthermore, because I always bring the receipts, before that Wall Street Journal, the first one dropped, it was reported that someone met with Rupert Murdoch. You all want to take a guess who? J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, the man who was groomed by Peter Thiel and the Broligarchy, the man who made his money in Wall Street and with the tech bros, the man who was not friends with Donald Trump, but was hand-delivered to Donald Trump as is the vice presidential candidate. That J.D. Vance met with Rupert Murdoch before all these bombshells started dropping. So I'm here to say that I think Rupert Murdoch is done with Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is paying attention, folks, because now Donald Trump is demanding that Rupert Murdoch, that flaming leftist liberal communist owner of Wall Street Journal and Fox, be deposed within 15 days. And why 15 days? Because Donald says Murdoch is old and in poor health, so the clock is ticking. And we have a president who, instead of leading this country, instead of lowering the prices, instead of making deals, he is obsessed with personal grievances. He is on a personal Festivus daily 365, 24/7 rage fest, right? It's all about his personal grudges, not about helping the people he claims to lead. And as much as Donald wants Epstein to go away, it is only growing, folks, because I've been saying that the only reason for the past 2 weeks that corporate media, which has failed on this story and so many other stories, and many Democrats, they could have and should have talked about this, but they didn't. The only reason that corporate media now has been emboldened is because the right wing has given them the permission. It is the Wall Street Journal, Fox, and the right-wing MAGA base that has been radicalized for the past 10 years by people like Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, right? About the deep state, the anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, right? About QAnon, that the rest of us, I'm not making this up, folks. They believe that the rest of us are devil-worshipping child pedophiles and murderers. They have spread this for 10 years. This has radicalized individuals to commit violence against their family members. This was part and parcel, the sequel, if you will, to Pizzagate. There was this gentleman who wasn't crazy, just close by to where I live, 20 minutes from where I live. I've been to this pizza place before. He shows up 10 years ago, remember, with a rifle and says, "I'm here to free the kids. Where are the kids?" And everyone was like, "Sir, this is a pizza place." He goes, "I heard that Clinton and Democrats have children locked in the basement." They realized that was working. They made it into QAnon. Donald Trump and others promoted QAnon that said the rest of us, anyone who opposes Donald Trump, is part of the deep state, and we're devil-worshipping child predators who murder children. That is a QAnon conspiracy. It radicalized people to commit violence. Vance Bolter the Trump supporter, remember Vance Bolter that no one talks about, that man last month who had a hit list of 70 Democrats, killed 2 Democrats, a Democratic representative in Minnesota and her, Melissa Hortman and her husband. That Vance Bolter was in part radicalized by, want to take a guess? QAnon. Ashley Babbitt, the violent insurrectionist who showed up on January 6th. She was radicalized by QAnon. And what MAGA said was the following. There is a deep state. All these libs are sex traffickers. And there's only one person who can eliminate the deep state. There's only one person who's the outsider who, if he comes back in power, him and his MAGA allies will come in and expose the entire ring through the Epstein files. And that man is Donald Trump. And they were promised that once Donald Trump came in power, they would release the Epstein files. Now, folks, I keep the receipts. I'm connecting the dots for you. Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, and even Kash Patel, they radicalized this space. That's how they made their name and their claim within MAGA. But guess what, folks? They're now part of the deep state. Kash Patel is now the FBI director. The deputy director is who? Dan Bongino. Attorney General is Pam Bondi. So they gave some chum to the base. We're going to invite some freaks like Libs of TikTok and Mike Cernovich, and we're going to take photos of them walking out with binders. It wasn't enough. Base said, give me the files. Pam Bondi, I have the files on my desk. Great. Where are the files? And then last month, if you recall, we were talking about this. Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, deer in headlights. We reviewed the files. Epstein killed himself. Don't worry about it. And they started turning on him. And then Dan Bongino was like, oh my God, real work is hard. And apparently now Dan Bongino is turning on Pam Bondi, is turning on Kash Patel because Dan Bongino's own base sees him as a sellout, right? And folks, they want the files. It is MAGA that is radicalized. The monster is turning against the creator. This has radicalized them because, folks, there's also people, believe it or not, who aren't crazy, who are against pedophiles. And they're like, we want the information. Where are the files? And the reason why the information is never, ever going to be released is because, as we found out through the Wall Street Journal, Pam Bondi told Donald Trump in May, his name is in the files. That means, folks, that Donald Trump, number one, lied to the American public when ABC News asked him, what did Pam Bondi say? Did she say you're in the files? He said, no, she's doing a great job. And number two, everything for the past 2 months has been a cover-up. So you keep on the Epstein files to weaken Trump, to get all the names. I've said this before. I say it again. I don't give a shit if Clinton's on that, philanthropists, celebrities, if it is shown that these people aided Epstein and Maxwell in preying on young girls, F them all to hell, right? You need justice and accountability for all these girls. Virginia Jeffrey killed herself in April, folks. The one that is the most prominent person who came out and talked about Prince Andrew and others, she killed herself in late April. The Farmer sisters were not believed. So I believe exactly Epstein files is Donald's kryptonite, Susan. I've been saying it for 2 weeks. Susan's fantastic. She's heard it on Democracy-ish. This is his kryptonite. And I want to say one last thing before we move on. Nancy Pelosi, about a week and a half ago, was on MSNBC. And Chris Lansing talked to her about the Epstein files, right? All of us are saying, okay, just strategically, he's negative 35 on this. His own base is rupturing on this. Maybe triple down on it. What did Nancy Pelosi say? We should move on to bread and butter issues. And you're like, what? What? So, I don't know, but if I have to guess, Nancy Pelosi probably is trying to run cover for Clinton and some others. And I'm saying, I don't give an F. Bring it all out into the public. And folks, he's even losing Joe Rogan. Show me the slide, Lexi. For a man who loves to weave, Donald's found one subject that won't go away. He can't bullshit his way out of this one. Freaking Joe Rogan isn't letting go of this. Joe Rogan talked about Epstein 40 times, according to the CNN. And specifically on an episode of Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan called the Trump regime's refusal to release the Epstein files, quote, a line in the sand. So Trump is flipping out. Are you all with me? I'm going a bit longer than I should, but if you're all with me, I'm going to keep rolling. Lexi and Mercedes have told me something. Breaking news from Mercedes. The United States federal workers, including supervisors, can attempt to persuade their colleagues, to join their religion. according to a new directive from the director of U.S. Office of Personnel Management, who runs the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, Russell Vought. Who is Russell Vought? A white Christian nationalist and the co-author of Project 2025. While the memo outlines some commonly accepted practices like allowing federal employees to pray in the workforce or wear religious attire, it takes a step further in saying that workers may engage in, quote, attempting to persuade others of the correctness of their own religious views, as long as such efforts are not harassing in nature. And while this is happening, thank you so much, Mercedes, for that breaking news. While this is happening, anti-DEI measures. Pete Hegseth is scrubbing all affinity groups, scrubbing Muslim groups, South Asian groups, black groups, right? Can you celebrate Ramadan? Probably not under anti-DEI measures. So anything that is not white or Christian is being openly scrubbed. Folks, this is white Christian nationalism. This is Russell Vought and his white Christian nationalism. This is Pete Hegseth and his white Christian nationalism. And Lexi, let's talk about Pete Hegseth for a second. We'll go back to Cooper. Folks, I want people to know that Pete Hegseth wrote a book called American Crusade. Pete Hegseth is a man whose own colleagues said that he has an alcohol problem. Pete Hegseth is a man who has these tattoos that are now associated with Christian nationalists, right? Deus Vult, God wills it, the Iron Cross tattoo. Not everyone who has it is, of course, a Christian nationalist, but in the last 20 years, along with the ideology and the talking points, it's very clear that this is who Pete Hegseth is, right? Furthermore, Pete Hegseth's own colleagues in the army, in addition to what he was saying and these tattoos, reported him to his supervisors as a potential threat. That man is now our Secretary of Defense. This is the same man who drunkenly 10 years ago apparently said, kill all Muslims. It is very clear that there is a white Christian nationalist agenda for people like Pete Hegseth and Russell Vought. For others like Elon Musk, it's about the oligarchy, but also some racism. For RFK, it's the eugenics and the racism, right? But the central focus here is power and racism by any means necessary, and also a Christian nationalist bent. As we know, Justice Alito flew two flags associated with the January 6th insurrection. One of them was the Appeal to Heaven flag that, again, has been misappropriated by Christian nationalists. So speaking about Pete Hegseth, speaking about the world's most mediocre men failing up, speaking about DUI hires, this freaking absolute sham of a Secretary of Defense man who talks about merit, but has none, only got to his position because he's white, Christian, male, and Donald Trump thought he would be, good on TV. This mother effer has completely been an absolute scandal. This is a man who even military.com, which is actually a good website for those who are in military families, said that the military laughs at him, right? That people don't even want to be part of his team, right? This is a man who literally, folks, Signalgate that should have gotten anyone else fired, copy-pasted confidential information that revealed not just our battle plans, but also compromised our troops, and copy-pasted in Signal, an unsecure app. He tried to get a dirty line into his office in the White House. He also invited his wife, who has nothing to do with the administration, to write to these apps, right? And then they lied about it. So he has already leaked, if you will, confidential information. And let's remember that Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of Atlantic, was invited to that Signal chat, right? That Pete Hegseth, according to the Washington Post, that Pete Hegseth, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, was quietly ordered to stop using polygraph tests on his own staff after one of his senior advisors raised concerns directly with officials in the West Wing. That advisor, Patrick Weaver, feared he was about to be forced to take a lie detector test as part of Hegseth's internal crackdown on leaks, because, folks, there are a lot of leaks. A lot of this information we got on Pete Hegseth, that's coming from inside the White House. And some people think it's Susan Wiles. Just saying. So Weaver, who is a Trump loyalist, hardcore MAGA, associate of Pee Wee German Stephen Miller, complained to the White House this spring. And soon after, someone close to the administration made a phone call, and the polygraph operation was shut down. Before the intervention, Hegseth had already subjected multiple aides and military officers to polygraphs. Two of the Pentagon's highest-ranking officers, including Lieutenant General Douglas Sims, Director of Joint Staff, was threatened with tests. Sims was also passed over for promotion to 4-star general. 4-star general, despite support from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs in what senior military officials viewed as political retribution. Fascists turn on everyone, folks. We knew this was going to happen and happened within 6 months. Petty, egotistical people, completely unqualified, who want power by any means necessary, turning on each other like rabid rats. The polygraph campaign began after Hegseth fired 3 senior Pentagon appointees, accusing them, this was another huge scandal, accusing them without evidence of leaking to the media. That led to a formal leak investigation approved by Hegseth and carried out with help from his personal attorney. The Pentagon declined to comment on the polygraph program, with a spokesman calling the reporting months-old workplace gossip and fake news. Nope, real news, real news. The leaks came from within the White House, and the White House itself told Hegseth to knock it off. But this new revelation that the White House itself stepped in to stop the polygraph tests suggests that even Trump's inner circle, right, saw these loyalty programs as going too far and risking blowback inside one of the most sensitive agencies in government, the Secretary of Defense, folks. The former Secretary of Defense, Lieutenant General Austin, black man, O10 rank, 4-star general. The man before him during Trump's first administration, General Mattis, O10 rank, 4-star general. This is a man who, literally not just advises the president on military strategy, also oversees a near $1 trillion budget, right? The entire armed military forces, like 2 million people, right? This is the man, Pete Hegseth, whom they have as the Secretary of Defense, a man who at most is an 04 rank, a man who has trouble with alcoholism, a man who in Princeton wrote one time when he was in Princeton that if you have sex with a woman who's drunk, it doesn't count as rape. And then, lo and behold, that same man paid a woman $50,000 to sign an NDA, a woman who he allegedly, wait for it, sexually assaulted. This is the man, this completely unqualified man that they chose to be Secretary of Defense. Leak, 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 folks. It's all coming apart. Fascists turn on fascists. And again, Kash Patel, maybe you should have, a person with law enforcement experience be your director of FBI. Another little gem that was in that Wall Street Journal reporting. Once it was found out, once Pam Bondi, the attorney general, told Donald Trump in late May, allegedly, that he was in the files, in the Epstein files, guess who started gossiping like a little bee about it to everyone? Anyone? Kash Patel. Kash Patel, the FBI director, started telling everyone, hey, you know who's in the Epstein files? Donald Trump. The world's most incompetent people, the world's dumbest people are killing us, folks. Some good news. Some Democrats have finally found out, you know what? We have an opportunity here. Let's fight. Let's go on offense. Let's strategize. And I like this move, folks. We have some good news today. This is a good move that I actually appreciate. We have a new contender for North Carolina, the Senate seat, which Tom Tillis actually abandoned. Why did Tom Tillis actually say he's not running again? You all remember? Because Tom Tillis realized the big, beautiful bill, the signature bill of Donald Trump, is a disaster. He realized that, gutting Medicaid to give tax cuts to the billionaires will hurt Republicans and their base. So what did Donald Trump do? Festivus, fascists come for everyone. He put the target sign on Tom Tillis. And Tom Tillis said, all right, well, MAGA's a cult. I guess I'm done. Peace out, y'all. So there's a vacancy. And in this vacancy, good name stepped up, folks. Former governor of North Carolina. Very popular, well-liked, respected, white man, middle-aged, straight, Christian, right? Checks all the boxes. Roy Cooper officially announced the bid for the U.S. Senate in 2026. Take a look.
Yes, certainly big news this morning, Naya. The former two-term Democratic governor here in the state of North Carolina making it official through a video posted to social media. Cooper entering, of course, could help Democrats as they attempt to retake the majority in 2026. The Dems need 4 seats, with most of the races in states President Donald Trump previously won, so no easy challenge.
It's probably the best of all ideal candidates, somebody who can raise a ton of money, who sparks national interest, and who has a track record of winning 6 times at the statewide level.
Is a good pick. He could actually flip it. And North Carolina, folks, it's more purplish than red. It's a good pick, and Donald Trump has thrown all his weight behind Michael Whatley, the Republican RNC chair, best known for parroting Trump's election lies. Yep. RNC chair Michael Whatley. Let's see these Trump poll numbers and Republican poll numbers in 6 months. I don't think it's going to work out well for him. But the race isn't just about the Senate seat, folks. It's a referendum on democracy. It's a referendum on cruelty. It's a referendum on the oligarchy. It's a referendum on Trump. And in South Carolina, we're seeing a messy brawl between the Republicans. This is juicy. Take a look.
Senator Lindsey Graham now has a new challenger for his seat. Paul Dans, who's a chief architect of Project 2025, is set to formally announce his campaign at an event on Wednesday here in Charleston. Dans reportedly told the Associated Press that the Trump administration's federal workforce reductions and cuts to federal programs are what he had hoped for in drafting Project 2025. He says that there's more work to do, particularly in the Senate. Project 2025 is a political initiative to reshape the federal government here in the United States. Dans joins a very crowded field ahead of next year's midterm election here in the Palmetto State. Graham has held that seat, though, since 2003.
My prediction, Paul Dans ain't gonna be the only one. They're sensing blood in the water, folks. Fascists turn on everyone. They're sensing blood in the water. We're in the sharpening the knives moment here. Stabby, stabby, folks. And Lindsey Graham has permanently resided in Donald Trump's anus for the past 10 years. He's been jockeying for a position with Ted Cruz. Forgive me for that mental image, but I had to go there. And now Lindsey Graham humiliated himself. You all saw that Kristen Welker meet the press, got some cojones and kind of went after Lindsey Graham, who was sent by Donald Trump, right, to run interference and distraction. But she got him. And she said, it seems like you're distracting on the Epstein file. So Lindsey Graham, his days might be numbered. Oh, Lindsey Graham, look at what they make you give. To quote the Bourne Identity, look at what they make you give. Lindsey's probably thinking, oh, Donald Trump, I've had his back for 10 years. He'll have my back. But Donald Trump, folks, as you have clearly seen with Epstein, as you have seen with Mike Pence, as you have seen with anyone who hurts him, even his mentor, Roy Cohn, not known as a man who reciprocates when it comes to loyalty, uses you and throws you away. Folks, we also have some Democrats doing the right thing, in my opinion. Democrats are waking up to the changing winds. Democrats are finally listening to their base. Democrats are finally seeing what's happening in the world. And Democrats who should have learned in the 2024 election, because the writing was on the wall, that supporting Benjamin Netanyahu and the extremist Israeli regime and their continuing war crimes and genocide in Gaza will do them no favors with their base, still went along with it. I know people might not like hearing this, folks, but this is my opinion, and I'm going to say it. The genocide that's happening in Israel, I'm not the only one who's saying it. Amnesty International said it. Omar Bartov came out with a fantastic piece in the New York Times you should read last week. He's seen as one of the foremost sober scholars on genocide, a Jewish American man, born in Israel, served time in the IDF. He resisted calling it a genocide, and then last week in the New York Times wrote an article saying, I'm a scholar on genocide. This is genocide, right? The Biden administration and the Trump administration have been complicit in arming Israel, funding Israel, and Netanyahu. Netanyahu came 2.5 weeks ago, again visited America. And folks, you would think with CNN, Pew, and Gallup showing you these remarkable polls, and I've said this before, I'm old enough, I got the gray hair. There was only 2 times in my life that I've seen such a remarkable shift in the American population. The first time was Obama term 1, Obama term 2, when it came to marriage equality. If you all remember, Obama term 1, the gays, we love the gays, but marriage is between a man and a woman. Obama term 2, hooray, gays. Hey, gay, come here. Let me take a photo with you. Marriage equality. A remarkable shift that happened. And you saw, crack, the dam broke. And finally, there was a shift where a majority said, you know what? Yeah, we're behind marriage equality. It took decades worth of work. In the last year and a half, with the genocide streamed to people's phone in real time, you see a radicalization of people here and abroad saying enough is enough. You're seeing young people, historic shift being pro-Palestinian. They want Palestinian freedom. They're not supporting Israel. You're seeing a shift even in MAGA, folks. America First, where a lot of people, even Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, all these other, Marjorie Taylor Greene. The fact that I agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on this makes me vomit in my mouth, right? You've seen even Tucker Carlson asking, why are we supporting Netanyahu, who's a war criminal? Why are we supporting this genocide? And now, folks, a recent report came out just a couple of days ago where the Israeli military called out the Israeli government's lie. The Israeli government, since the summer, has been lying and saying we cannot send Palestinians aid because Hamas has been stealing them. Since May, folks, since May, more than 1,000 Palestinian civilians who are starving have been killed by the IDF. These Palestinians in Gaza are going to these food aid distribution sites. And just recently, Haaretz did an expose where IDF soldiers, on the condition of anonymity, said they were commanded to shoot at these unarmed, starving Palestinians who were trying to get aid. The IDF soldiers called it, quote, a killing field. More than 1,000 Palestinians have been killed this way since May. Now, Palestinians are facing phase 5 starvation in Gaza. Phase 5 starvation, which means they are now literally dropping dead. Children are dropping dead from starvation. And even if these people who are starving survive with phase 5 starvation, we're talking about long-term damage to your organs, to your health, to your growth. UNICEF came out and said, as a result of this aid shortages, these blockages done by Israel, because Israel occupies Gaza in the sense that it blocks entry and exit. It has control over the air, has control over the sea, right? Very deliberate man-made famine in Gaza. 80% of the victims of this man-made famine, children. And now we're seeing the last 2 weeks, these photos. These photos are unmistakable of these kids. I mean, I don't know if you've seen these photos. Chills down my spine. Like, I sit there and I'm horrified by this. And I ask myself, regardless of what you think about Israel-Palestine, how does anyone support this? How does anyone support this? The starving of children, the starving of babies. Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. These babies aren't Hamas. They're babies. They're babies. And Lancet has said that the number of 60,000 civilians killed, Palestinians, killed, most of them civilians in the past year and a half. Lancet, a medical journal, said that number is probably 40% higher. So we're seeing a genocide in real time, folks, streamed to our phones, which is aided directly by our taxpayer dollars, both the Biden administration and the Trump administration. And you're waiting for a Democrat to say enough is enough. And folks, 2.5 weeks ago, I hate saying this, but this is the facts. I don't bend the knee to anyone. I bring all the receipts. War criminal Benjamin Netanyahu visited. You know who took a photo of him? Go Google this. Go see the photo. A bipartisan photo was taken with war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu. You know who was in that photo? Chuck Schumer, Cory Booker, Jackie Rosen, Adam Schiff, Chris Coons, and Amy Klobuchar. And you're sitting there thinking, your base is telling you this is deeply unpopular. You've seen all the polls. And literally, you double down on this. Well, something about seeing the photos of babies' rib cages has moved people. And today, Angus King, folks, independent senator from Maine who caucuses with Democrats, I mean, he went hard. He went harder than any Democrat I've seen on this. This is a quote. Can we bring up that quote from Angus King? I am through supporting the actions of the current Israeli government and will advocate and vote for an end to any United States support whatsoever until there is demonstrable change in the direction of Israeli policy. My litmus test will be simple. No aid of any kind as long as there are starving children in Gaza due to the action or inaction of the Israeli government. Folks, respect to Angus King. This should have been done a year ago. I don't know what motivated him. Maybe they see the polls. Maybe they see where the wind is blowing. Maybe they're finally listening to their base. Maybe they finally see Palestinians as human beings. Maybe the Netanyahu extremist regime has openly gone so genocidal. Just listen to their quotes, folks. Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, they're openly telling you the plan. The Security Cabinet openly voted for occupying Gaza and moving the Palestinians away. That's called ethnic cleansing. Maybe they read Omar Bartov's piece on genocide. I don't know. We need more of this. And we need democratic leadership now to follow King and others. This is a genocide happening in real time, folks. And people say, oh, we can't do anything. I'll remind y'all, Ronald Reagan, once he was seeing Israel's war crimes in Lebanon in the early 80s, picked up the phone, called up Prime Minister Begin and said, I see a Holocaust on the TV screen. I want you to end it. Begin said, respectfully, President, I know a Holocaust. But he said, I don't care. I want you to finish this. 20 minutes later, Begin calls him up and said, okay, we'll cease. You also saw Dwight Eisenhower put pressure. You saw Bush put pressure. Without United States complicity, whether it's our money, our weapons, our guns, or diplomatic support, Israel cannot continue this. Israel is not suicidal. They need U.S. weapons, support, money, and diplomatic support. Literally a phone call might end this, folks. Sorry for that. I spoke a little bit too much. I hope it wasn't too much. Someone gave me a private chat, but I can't read it. What was the chat? What are you saying? Hold on one second. Someone's sending me a note, probably telling me to stop talking. Lexi says, hey, you're talking for too long. Stop talking. Sorry, Lexi. I'll wrap it up. Usually this goes for 40 minutes. She goes, hey, it's 7 o'clock in 10 minutes. But we got 6,500 people here. I hope you all don't mind my little rant. I thought it was important. And speaking about the cruelty, folks, why this is all connected. And before we get to some good news, we're going to talk about another aspect of cruelty, which is so clear, so naked, so shameless. Folks, Republicans spent $200 million on attacking trans people. And it won, folks. It won over a lot of well-intentioned folks who saw trans people as the boogeyman. Only 1% of the population, right? But people said, I know I have friends who said this. You have friends who said this too, Democrats. The trans, too much. The trans, I'll be okay with the gays, but not the trans. And then they went after undocumented immigrants. I like the legal immigrants. Some undocumented, though. They come here the wrong way. F them. Then they went after pro-Palestinian students. I don't like these chants. These Palestinian students, I heard they're Hamas. I heard Mahmoud Khalil's Hamas. Yeah, F them. I don't care. They detained Mahmoud Khalil illegally for 105 days. Zero crimes. The man missed the birth of his child. Rumeysa Oster, Turkish grad student, literally kidnapped by masked armed ICE agents in the middle of the day. Why? Co-wrote an op-ed. And then people saw, why are these legal El Salvadorans being kidnapped and renditioned to the prison? CCOT. Wait a second. Whoa. We didn't vote for this. Whoa. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is being tortured. Whoa. The barber who came here legally, who's a gay man, who just finally got released. He's being tortured. Whoa. Masked armed ICE agents are now terrorizing my communities, going into preschools, trying to get kids. Literally, ICE has deported legal citizens, at least 70 that we know of, kids, right? And their families. And people said, whoa, this is too much, which is why Donald Trump is underwater on immigration. But that hasn't stopped MAGA. Here's super Christian Nancy Mace.
New sheriff in town, I have to tell you, one of my favorite things to watch on YouTube these days are the court hearings where illegals are in court and ICE shows up to drag them out of court and deport them. I can think of nothing more American today than keeping our streets safer by getting those violent criminals out of the United States of America, and we all have Donald J. Trump to thank for it.
With the cross, always there, right above the cleavage, right there. Folks, this is what we're dealing with. If you thought this cruelty would be limited only to the undocumented, you weren't paying attention. If you thought this cruelty would only be limited to Palestinians in Gaza, you aren't paying attention. If you thought this cruelty would only be limited to transgender folks, you aren't paying attention. Fascists come for everyone, including fellow fascists. And we're seeing it now. And thank you for Mercedes for jumping in. Christian nationalists come for everyone also. White Christian nationalists. They want this country to be a white Christian nation. They believe God has favored them and allowed them through any violent means necessary and any illegal means necessary to take control and dominion of the United States of America. And they're charged by God to cleanse this United States of America and make it a Christian nation so that they will have the rapture and the second coming of Christ. I'm not making it up. And they believe in warrior Jesus. And there was a actual footprint of Christian nationalism on January 6th. Look at the slogans, look at the flags. And again, I want to remind you, Samuel Alito's wife flew not just one, but two flags. We're dealing with fascists. We're dealing with a violent authoritarian movement that goes after the most marginalized. And the rest of us think we'll be safe until we aren't. And then you have the Pastor Niemöller quote. First they came for, and then they came for, and then they came for. So now, hopefully, eyes wide open, folks. Trump is weak. What's weakened him? Not the January 6th insurrection. Not, fraud, not being a criminal, not, the sexual assault of E. Jean Carroll. Epstein. And this is a wedge we should further just divide it. To quote Ken Watanabe's character from Godzilla, let them fight. And let there be justice and accountability for all the women and all the marginalized communities. Folks, I was stepping in for Mary Trump. She will be back. Don't worry. Tomorrow, she was just feeling a bit ill. I gave you a lot today, but we need some catharsis. We need some release. And we will have release with your emotional support moment of today. And today's emotional support moment, which made me smile, it made Lexi smile, is two beavers eating a potato. That was awesome. Hopefully that gave you some relief, some release, some catharsis. This has been Mary Trump Live, folks. If you are not a subscriber, please subscribe. Mary started from 0, got to 50K, got to 100K. Now she's almost at 450K. The more and more people subscribe, the more it helps the algorithm. That's just how YouTube works. Also, once this is published in about a minute, please like it and please share it. Share it on other channels, share it on other social media apps. It goes a long way. Folks, my name is Wajat Ali. I'm Brown Mary. I edit and write for the Left Hook Substack. I have no paywalls. Everything is free. If you have not become a subscriber, please become a subscriber. It's the lefthook.substack.com. I think people seem to enjoy it. If you have a few bucks, hey, send a few bucks my way. I have 3 kids, but I decided against paywalls because I believe it's too important. The information needs to be out there. I know people are struggling, so give what you can when you can, but I believe we need an informed electorate to fight back against white Christian nationalism, racists, nativists, and fascists. Folks, Mary will be, inshallah, back. She's just a bit under the weather. I want to give a shout out to some of the great super chatters who have given us money today. Folks, all of these super chats, they're like tips. They all go to Mary. There is no corporate donors. So thank you, Champagne Hand, for giving us becoming a new member. Thank you for liking my Substack. Susan's everywhere. Susan always gives $10. Thank you, Susan. Blonde gifted 20 Mary Trump Media memberships to someone. Blonde Bombshell, that is dope. That's huge. Thank you so much. Lady Di in Nevada, $5. Thank you. Susan also gifted 5 Mary Trump memberships. Blonde Bombshell is a new member. For those folks who have a few bucks to spare, become a super chatter. If you're watching it on YouTube, underneath, you'll see a circle with ... If you click on the dot, you'll see a $sign with a heart. That's how you become a tipper. $1, $2, $5, it goes a long way. And the DJ today, the person who I would not be able to do this without, is Lexi. Give it up for Lexi. Thank you, Lexi, for helping me out. She's the one who got all the slideshows. It's fun, right? It's like I'm hosting a show. I'm like, boom, Lexi, hit it. Bang, she hits it. And Mercedes popped in to give us that breaking news. So, Mary, feel better. Inshallah, she does feel better. Lexi, thank you so much. Mercedes, thanks so much. And thank you all, the 6,500 people who are watching. We really appreciate it. We will see you back tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Be kind to each other, be empathetic, and please, oh, please don't be a fascist.